So what is an array? So arrays are generally described as list-like objects. So they are basically single objects that contain multiple values stored in a list. Array objects can be stored in variables and dealt with in much the same way as any other type of value. The difference being that we can access each value inside list individually and do super useful and efficient things with the list. So like loop through it and do the same thing to every value. So maybe we've got a series of product items and their prices are stored in an array, and we want to loop through them all and print them out on an invoice. So while totaling all the prices together and printing out the total price at the bottom. So imagine that if we didn't have arrays, we'd have to store every item in a separate variable, then call the code that does the printing and adding separately for each item. So this would be much more longer to write out, less efficient, and more error prone. So if we had 10 items to add to the invoice, it would already be annoying, but what about 100 items or 1,000 items? So definitely we'll return to this example later on this article. So as in the previous articles, so let's learn about the real basics of arrays by entering some examples into the browser developer console. Creating arrays. Arrays consist of square brackets and items that are separated by commas. So suppose we want to store a shopping list in an array. So we paste the following code into the console. So we have const shopping. Then we have the following items: bread, separated by comma, milk, cheese, hummus, and noodles. So we console.log the shopping array. So to be able to test this code, you need to use the developer tools of your Google Chrome. So the output here would be the display of your array items. So in the above example, so each item is a string. But in an array, we can store various data types, either strings, numbers, objects, and even other arrays. So we can also mix types in a single array. So we have different data types in an array. So we do not have to limit ourselves to storing only numbers in one array or in another only strings. So for example, we have the first one, const sequence array. So we have initialized the array to the different values. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 13. And we have the random array with the different data types. So the first item is 3. We have 7, 9, 5, and we have an array within an array. Okay, so that is how we create arrays in JavaScript. Next, we could also find the length of an array. So by using the length property, so this is how many items are in it. So in exactly the same way as you find out the length in characters of a string. So we use the length property. So let's try the following. So we have const shopping. Then we have these items in our array. So we have bread, milk, cheese, hummus, and noodles. Then we use the shopping name of the array, that length, and it will display the size of the array, which is 5. Adding items in an array. So to add one or more items to the end of an array, we can use the push method. So note that you need to include one or more items that you want to add to the end of your array. So push method is the method we will use to add one or more items for our array. So example, we have the const cities. So this array has two elements, Manchester and Liverpool. So we push an item, so cities.push Cardiff, then we log cities. At first, the array contains now the Manchester, Liverpool, and Cardiff. Then, we push more values, so cities.push Bradford, Brighton, then we log it again. Then the output would be Manchester, Liverpool, Cardiff, Bradford, and Brighton. So that's how we push, how we add items, one or more items to the end of an array. Next, so adding items in an array, continuation. So the new length of the array is returned when the method call completes. So if you wanted to store new array length in a variable, you could do something like this. So we declare or create another array again with the Manchester and Liverpool as the initial elements. Then we declare a variable new length equals cities.push Bristol, then console.log cities, then console.log new length. So once you log the cities, it will display the three elements of your array. Then console.log new length will return the size of your array. Okay, next. So to add items to the start of the array, use the unshift method. So again, this is used to add item or add an item to the start of the array. So we declare an array cities. So it has two elements. So we use the unshift method by calling the cities. So cities.unshift Edinburgh. Then we log the cities. Definitely the Edinburgh city will be added at the beginning of your array. So we have now Edinburgh, Manchester, and Liverpool. Next, to remove items in an array, so we will use the pop method. So pop method remove the last item from the array. So say for example, we have const cities. So we have Manchester and Liverpool. Then we call the cities array, then .pop method. So it will remove the last item of inside our array. So that initially we have Manchester, then we use the pop method. Now we log it, then it outputs Manchester. Okay? So the pop method returns the item that was removed. So to save that item into a new variable, you could do something like this. So const cities, declare the array, then put elements inside the square bracket, Manchester and Liverpool. Then we const remove city, declare another variable. Then cities.pop, so it will store the remove city, so yung Liverpool. So we console.log the remove city and it will return the last item that has been removed from the array. Okay, so that's how you save that item into a new variable and display it again. Next, so we have the method shift. So we use the shift method to remove the first item from an array. Say for example, we declare an array, then put values to that array, Manchester and Liverpool, then we use the shift method. So it will remove the first item, which is Manchester, and we output the array, so it displays Liverpool. Okay, so that is the different methods we could use in your array. Next, we can use the splice method. So splice method is used to remove item from an array using the index. So if you know the index of an item, you can remove it from the array using this method. So we have the const cities with the following elements: Manchester, Liverpool, Edinburgh, and Carlisle. So say for example, we use declare the index cities.index of Liverpool. So we have determined the index by means of the index method. Then if the index is not equal to -1, so it will splice. So we will remove the index, okay, or the item in the index 1. So that's the second parameter of the splice method. So we have 0, Manchester, Liverpool is the one in the index value, index 1. So definitely the returned array now is Manchester, Edinburgh, and Carlisle. Okay? So that's how you use the splice method. So the splice method, so the first argument says where to start the removing items. And the second argument says how many items should be removed. So you can remove more than one item. Say for example, we call again the cities, or so we declare it in Manchester, Liverpool, Edinburgh, and Carlisle. So const index equals cities.index of the Liverpool. So we determine the index of Liverpool. So if the index is not equal to -1, then remove 2 items starting on the index of the Liverpool. So the index of the Liverpool is 1, and we place the 2 as the value for the second parameter. So we have removed Liverpool and Edinburgh. Okay, so that's how you splice, remove items in an array using the index. Then we could access every item in an array. So very often you want to access every item in an array by using the for-of statement. So we have used this in our looping looping statement modules. So we use the for-of. So say for example, const bird, parrot, falcon, and owl. So we use the for-of statement to display, to access every items in an array. Okay, so that's how we access every items. And sometimes we want to do same thing to each item in an array, leaving you with an array containing the change items. So you can do this using the map or the map method. So the code here takes an array of numbers and doubles each number. So we have function double accepts a number, then return number multiplied by 2. So we have here const numbers array, then doubled will store the numbers array, that map, then passing the double, okay, double value, and we display the double value and everything in the array will be multiplied by 2. So starting with 5, it became 10. So 2, it became 4. 7, it became 14. And 6, it became number 12. So we give a function to the map, and the map calls the function once for each item in the array, passing in the item. So it then adds the return value from each function call to a new array, and finally returns the new array. Okay, so that's how we use the map method. Also, we have the filter. So sometimes you'll want to create a new array containing only the items in the original array that match some tests. So you can do that using the filter method. So the code below here takes an array of strings and return an array containing just the strings that are greater than 8 characters long. So we have a function is long that accepts ct. Okay, then we have return it as ct.length greater than 8. Then we have a array of London, Liverpool, this city and Edinburgh. So we have const longer than cities.filter. So all the cities that has the length of greater than 8. So we have Liverpool and Edinburgh. So meaning to say those items have a matching condition. So their length is greater than 8. Okay, so that is the use of the filter. Okay, so like map, we can give a function to the filter method, and the filter calls this function for every item in the array, passing in the item. So if the function returns true, then the item is added to the new array. Finally, it returns the new array. So that's how we use the adding, removing, and accessing every items in an array. Accessing array items. So items in an array are numbered starting from 0. So this number is called the items index. So the first item has an index of 0, the second index 1, and so on. So you can access individual items in the array using the bracket notation and supplying the items index in the same way that you access the letters in a string. Say for example, we enter the following code in the console. So we have const shopping, then we have the different items. So we access the first item of our array using the name of the array followed by the square bracket, then the index of that item. So in this case, we put it as 0. Okay. Then we can also modify the array items by giving a single array into a new value. So let's try this. So we have the shopping array, then we have those items again. Then on index 0, so initially the index 0 is bread. Then we modify the first item in your array by typing the name of the array, then the index number, which is 0. Then we put or initialize the value of the first or the first element of the array to another item. Then we could definitely modify the contents of that array. Next, so we could also access multi-dimensional array. So multi-dimensional array is an array inside an array. So note that an array is inside an array can be accessed. So you can access an item inside an array that is itself inside another array by chaining two sets of square brackets together. So for example, to access one of the items inside the array, that is the third item inside the random array, so we could do something like this. Say for example, we have the random array with different array items. So we have 3, 795. Then we have 0, 1, 2 as an array inside an array. Then we access it through the use of the chaining of two sets of square brackets. So random 2, 2, and it displays the output as number 2. Next is we could find items in an array using the index method. So this is fine if you know the index of an item, but what if you don't? So you can use the index of method to find the index of a particular item. This takes an item as an argument and returns the index or -1 if the item was not found in the array. Say for example, we have an array of birds that has the following items. We have parrot, falcon, and we have the owl. So to be able to determine the index of a particular item, so we console.log the birds array, that index of, then the name of the element, which is owl, then it returns the value 2. So the index number of the owl data is 2. Then we add or use another console.log method. Then we call the birds array that index of rabbit, and it returns -1 because it doesn't have the element rabbit in our array. Converting between strings and arrays. So often you will be presented with some raw data contained in a big long string. And you might want to separate the useful items out into a more useful form and then do things to them. So it's just like you want to display them in a data table. So in JavaScript, so there is a method that we could use. So that is the split method. So in its simplest form, this takes a single parameter, the character you want to separate the string at, and returns the substrings between the separator as items in an array. So let's play with this. So to see how it works, we first create a string in your console. So we will use the console tab again of the developer tools to test this code. So once that we have declared an array of string or a string data, we declare a cities equals data. So you are calling the data and you are splitting the data. If it encounters a comma, therefore it will split those data and store it to cities. Okay, so we have split it and divide it into those array. Next, so if there is splitting, therefore you could also join it. So you can also go the opposite way using the join method. So you combine items in an array. So try the following. So we have this one. So we have data. Okay, then we comma separated cities.join, comma, and it will display the splitted items before, and it has been joined from the word itself. That is join method. Then lastly, we have the toString method. So there's another way of converting an array to a string is to use this method. So the toString method is arguably simpler than the join method, as it doesn't take a parameter but more limiting. So with join, you can specify different separators, whereas into a string method, so it always uses a comma. So say for example, we have const dog names. Then this is array of names of dogs, Rocket, Plush, Bella, and Slugger. Then we convert those array into string. So you will use again the console tab. Then it will output those arrays in string format. So that's the different methods we could use in terms of converting strings and arrays.